Okay, so let's get right into it. Right now, inside your head, there's a battle raging. And it's a pretty fundamental conflict, one that quietly shapes your thoughts, your beliefs, your entire reality. It's your brain's secret war against the unknown. And today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the secret machinery it uses to fight that war. But first, I have a question for you. Just think for a second about all the difficult emotions out there. You know, anger, sadness, that gnawing feeling of regret, even fear. Of all of them, which one do you think your brain is fundamentally wired to avoid at all costs? The answer? Well, it's probably not what you're thinking. See, it's not the monster in the dark, it's the possibility there might be a monster. It's not the bad news itself, it's that awful, gut-wrenching feeling of waiting for the news. The single greatest enemy to your brain's peace and quiet is uncertainty. That simple, powerful feeling of just not knowing what's going to happen next. And researchers don't mess around. They frame this as a full-blown crisis. When you're uncertain, your brain's ability to predict what's next just collapses. Your power to make a decision basically freezes up. And even your very sense of who you are can start to feel like it's built on sand. So how does the brain fight back? What's its game plan? Well, that's what we're here to do. Let's follow the clues. Our investigation, our first clue, starts with a cognitive tool you use every single day, most of the time without even realizing it's there, your brain's internal confidence meter. And to see this meter in action, we don't need some fancy, complicated experiment. Let's just do a quick math problem in our heads. Ready? What's 25 plus 50? Okay, you know the answer is 75, but how do you feel that it's correct? That little click of rightness, that internal nod you give yourself, that's not just some vague hunch. It's actually a very precise cognitive function, hard at work. Scientists have a great name for this, calibration. And all it really means is how well your subjective feeling of confidence matches up with objective reality. So when you're perfectly calibrated, you feel super confident about the answers you get right and kind of iffy about the ones you get wrong. It's literally your brain's own built-in fact checker. And trust me, this is way more than just a neat party trick. This skill is absolutely crucial. Good calibration is a sign of something called metacognitive ability, a fancy term for how good you are at thinking about your own thinking. It's so important that, get this, studies actually link poor calibration to math learning disabilities in kids. One amazing study even found that a fifth grader's calibration level could predict how much their math skills would improve over the next 3 years. And it all seems to be connected to a specific part of the brain that acts like a dedicated error detection headquarters. So, okay, we have this logical, well-oiled error detection machine in our heads. Mystery solved, right? Case closed? Well, not so fast, because our investigation is about to take a very emotional turn. Remember that logical little fact checker we just met? It turns out it's not nearly as objective as we think. In fact, it's highly susceptible to influence, specifically the influence of your mood. And this is where our simple case gets a whole lot more complicated. So let's look at the evidence. In one study, researchers put people in brain scanners while they listened to stories. Some stories made perfect sense, but others had these illogical, nonsensical endings. These scans pinpoint the exact brain regions that light up when something just doesn't add up. You can think of those colored spots as the brain's internal alarm bell screaming, "Wait a minute, that's not right." But here's the absolute kicker. The researchers discovered that this entire system could be hijacked by the listener's mood. Being happy made one part of the brain better at spotting the inconsistencies. Being sad, that shifted the work to a completely different area of the brain. The takeaway here is just astonishing. Your emotional state literally changes which parts of your brain you use to decide if the world is making sense. So we know our internal sense of certainty is fragile, easily influenced by our feelings. So let's zoom out a bit. What happens when it's not just a little story that stops making sense, but the whole world? I mean, when we face a major crisis of uncertainty, a personal tragedy, a global pandemic, a massive life change, our brain doesn't just give up. Oh no, it activates a really incredible emergency protocol. According to something called compensatory control theory, when our sense of personal control gets threatened, our brains compensate. They scramble to find it somewhere else. First, we might double down on ourselves, overestimating our own ability to influence things. If that fails, we shift our beliefs to powerful external systems, like a government or a higher power, believing that they're in control, even if we're not. And if all else fails, the brain defaults to its most creative strategy yet. It starts imposing order on the chaos directly.
This final step has a name: illusory pattern perception. And it basically means that when we feel a lack of control, we become statistically more likely to see patterns in random noise, to believe in conspiracies, or to find connections between things that have nothing to do with each other. Our brain's desperate need for order becomes so strong that it literally starts to create it out of thin air.
So we've seen how desperately the brain fights against uncertainty. But what if the goal isn't really to win that war? What if the goal is to learn how to live in the midst of it? This is where our story takes its final and maybe its most profound turn. If there's one really big thing we've learned through all this, it's this. Your brain is not a passive window looking out onto the world. It is an active storyteller. It's a sense-making machine that translates, interprets, and completely reconstructs your experience to create a coherent narrative that you can live with. And really understanding that opens the door to a higher-level skill. It's what psychoanalysts, borrowing a term from the poet John Keats, call negative capacity. And it's not a weakness, it's a strength. It's the ability to resist that deep, primal urge to just jump to a conclusion, to fill the void, to kill the doubt. It's the courage to simply not know. Keats described it as the quality that really makes a great mind. The ability, as he put it, to be in uncertainties, mysteries, doubts, without any irritable reaching after fact and reason. It's about allowing your mind to be a container for complexity rather than just a machine that demands certainty. And all of this leaves us with one final big question to ponder. Knowing that your brain is a pattern matcher, a story spinner, and a certainty seeker, constantly working to build a coherent world for you, how much of what you perceive as your reality is actually real, and how much of it is just a beautiful, necessary, and utterly convincing story that you're telling yourself?
If this video made you feel better, please consider subscribing.